It's late 2001. You're at Tora Bora. The Coalition of the Willing, in its earlier life, have got Osama Bin Laden surrounded. He's hooked up to his dialysis machine, and you have literally got him in your sights. If you pull the trigger, he's dead. What will you do?
Can I ask you a question about that hypothetical?
Yeah.
What's my alternative to killing him?
The alternative is to capture him, if you can.
I think
you do have him surrounded.
I think you would always be better in those circumstances to go for a capture rather than a kill. And I say that on practical grounds rather than anything particularly moral. Primarily because if you look at the broad sweep of counterinsurgency over the last 200, 250 years, it is extremely rare to win a counterinsurgency without negotiating some kind of solution with the insurgent. And in the case of Al-Qaeda, if you kill Osama bin Laden in 2001, who are you going to negotiate with? And so I think that if your option is capture or kill, then you should always go for the capture.
Now, if you're going for a capture, of course, there's, first of all, a risk that on trial he'll be acquitted for one reason or another. There's a risk that he will escape before he is finally tried. There's also a risk that the Bush administration, when they learn what had happened, will sack you. Does that change the way you decide it?
I don't think so. War is a risky business, and there's risks with any choices that you make. There are a lot of risks associated with trying to kill someone as well. But one of the things that I wrote in one of the first pieces of counterinsurgency work that I did for the US government was a thing called 28 Articles, which became sort of a underground viral email that people sort of passed around in Iraq and Afghanistan. And one of the things in that document that I say is a defection is always better than a surrender, and a surrender is better than a capture, and a capture is better than a kill. Because this is about convincing people to stop fighting you. And unless you contemplate genocide, and we don't, then you really can't kill your way out of this problem. You have to start winning people over. And one of the things that you do to make that happen is you have to make it as hard as you can to stay in the insurgency and as easy as possible to leave.
Now, it's interesting that you identify practical reasons for capture rather than kill. The ethical argument would be that in the circumstances, he's a non-state actor, and to kill him would be murder. You may feel justified in murdering, but the means being murder would not be justified by the end of removing terrorist number one. Does that ethical dimension play any role in your decision making?
Well, ethics are critical in counterinsurgency. But I happen to think that it wouldn't actually be murder to kill Osama bin Laden on a battlefield. He's
hooked up to a dialysis machine and he's not on the battlefield.
That didn't actually happen, right? He was in the field carrying a weapon, part of a military organization. He had declared war on the United States and the rest of the Western community, including Australia, 3 times before the invasion of Afghanistan.
Well, Prince Leonard of Hutt, I think, has declared war on Australia occasionally, but would that justify us in taking him out if we could?
Well, if he had actually taken up arms against the Australian government and was engaged in a civil war, that would be a different matter from setting up a tourist industry on the basis of, Hutt River Province. So,
if it's an internal civil war...
Right, well, this is the point. I mean, do you think that the war on terrorism is a metaphor, or is it actually a real war?
Well, it's a metaphor, obviously.
Well, I don't think that everyone agrees with that.
How do you negotiate with an abstract noun?
Well, no, the war on... And that's what I say in my book, of course, as you know, because you've read it. But the point is that if an organization, and in this case Al-Qaeda, declares war on a state, and that state ends up at war with that organization, then you're in the realms of, I guess, the additional protocol to the Geneva Conventions in 1977. You're in the realm of a war between a state and a non-state actor. And one of the problems that we have in dealing with the threats that we have now is the Geneva Convention and the additional protocols are written for internal conflict, civil war inside one country. That's not what we have here. We have transnational war between a non-state actor and the international community. So I don't think that the war against Al-Qaeda is a metaphor. I think that the war on terrorism is a meaningless concept. But that's not what we were doing in 2001, and it's certainly not what we were doing in Iraq in 2007. Al-Qaeda was a real armed insurgent organization, and therefore I think they were entitled not only to be fought, but also to be fought according to the rules of war.